Howdy folks, Jeff Sengstack here, continuing my series of tutorials on authoring DVDs with Adobe Encore. This is the third and final part. This one's going to be on navigation, setting up navigation with your DVDs. And navigation includes creating links to assets and also telling your assets what to do when they're done playing, or when they're done playing, let's say, part of the asset. So that's called navigation. So let's start off by doing what are called end actions. You need to tell your videos, your timelines, what to do when they're done playing. Otherwise, they'll just stop and your DVD will stop and nothing will happen, and your viewer is going to go, what the heck's going on here? Why is nothing happening? You need to tell your timelines what to do. So you do that by giving them end actions. So here's my list of timelines. I've got 7 of them. If I click the first one, it'll show up here inside the properties panel on the right hand side, and it says end action right there. I want the end action to be to take viewers back to the main menu and then have the first button highlighted. That's the default. That's like the normal thing to do when a video ends. So I'm going to do that by, I can drag the pick whip over, or I can use this little drop down list. Well, the pick whip would be going to the main menu. Right now the main menu is tucked away inside this folder. So let's just do the drop down list method first. I'll click that little guy, pop it out. And then this lists all the possible places that it can go when it's done. You can have a video, when it ends, play another video, for example. But for this particular case, we'll have to go back to the main menu, default. That means it's going to be the first button. We could pick menu item 1, but we'll call it default, because that, by default, it is the first button. So now we've added an end action to that one video. Let me do a different way by doing Skater 1. I want it to go back to the main menu too, but I want it to go using the pick whip. So I'm going to open up the menus folder here so you can see the main menu. And now I'll take this guy. It's active, so it's visible here in the properties panel, and I'll just drag this end action over to the main menu, and it'll be the default button by default. Now I want to add the end actions to all these guys at once. It's easy to do. You can just select all of them. I've got these 5 selected now, and in the properties panel it says 5 values. And I can set the end actions to all 5 all at once by just taking the pick whip and dragging it over to main menu. And now we're done. All of those guys now have end actions to take them back to the main menu. I want to do the same thing for the slideshow. So here's the slideshow down here, and make it active. I want it to go back to the main menu, so I'm just going to click on its end action drop down list, main menu, default. Now I need to set end actions for the playlists as well, because when they're done, what happens? They got to go someplace too. But I'm going to do those individually later. So what I want to do now is to create some links to some buttons. And I want to start with the main menu. So I need to make the main menu visible here in the menus viewer. Clicking on it. These are 4 buttons there. They're all text buttons. When I add a link to those guys, I want the buttons to state the name of the link that's being added to it. So I'm going to select all 4 of those buttons by taking the selection tool and marquee selecting all 4 of them. And as when I selected all the timelines, those guys will now show up inside the properties panel as 4 values. And there's a checkbox down here that says set name from link. If I click on that, then anything I drag to them, whatever item it is, the name of that item will show up as the name of the button, which simplifies matters. But you'll see there's a little bit of a fly in the ointment here when I drag a slideshow to it, but I'll show you how that works in a second. So I'll click away now to deselect all 4 of those guys. Now I want to drag an item to the first thing, and I want the main video, this Ice Arena video, to be the main button. So I'm going to go down to the timeline, and there's my Ice Arena timeline. If I just drag that to the button, that automatically creates a link. And here's the little anomaly. Instead of saying Ice Arena, it says the first chapter inside the Ice Arena. This is one little fly in the ointment. I wish it didn't do this, but this is what it does. And so instead of saying Ice Arena, it says chapter 1. So what I need to do is change that particular name. And the way you do that is just by using the selection tool up here, clicking on the button, and then going up to its name here inside the properties panel and just changing that to Ice Arena. So the menu item number 2, I want to go to a menu with menu item 2. I want to go to the scene selection menu. So I've got the scene selection menu over here. I drag that to that button, and it will say scene selection because there aren't any funny little chapters there. So that button now will link to the scene selection menu. And then I want menu item 3 to be the skaters menu. So I drag this button over there, and that adds the skaters menu. And menu item 4 I don't need, so I'm going to click on it with the selection tool and press delete, and it's gone. Now those guys are kind of scrunched together there, right here and there, so I'll take this third one and kind of slide it over a bit. So at this point you might want to preview your work, and the way you do that is simply by right-clicking on any menu that's open in the menu viewer and say Preview from here, and it'll open up that menu in this project preview window, and the music will be playing. That music associated with this menu plays, and then as you hover your cursor over the buttons, you'll see a little highlight appear indicating that if you click, that's the button that you're going to select. If I click on Ice Arena, it'll start playing that video. And if I go down here on this little button and execute the end action, it'll do the end action that I gave to this particular timeline, which was to take me back to the main menu. And lo and behold, we're back to the main menu. If I click on the scene selection, that'll take me to the scene selection menu. If I click on skaters, we'll go to that menu. And those menus will be empty because we haven't populated them yet. And if I click on the return to main menu button, nothing will happen because we haven't assigned a link to that particular button. So that's just the basic process of how you can always preview at some point. We'll exit out of here and return. So now what I want to do is start making links to other menus, but before I do that, I want to explain this little image down here. You may have noticed it and wondered what this little arrow pointing down here is. This is called a replacement layer, and some templates have replacement layers in them. You can always add a replacement layer if you want to, but let me just show you how this works. The replacement layer says it's a placeholder, and you can replace whatever is there with your own still image. So let's say if I go to slideshow here and take a still image out of there, like this first one, I drag it over. It'll replace whatever's there with the same size and shape as the one that was there before. If I want to replace it with something else, I can always do that again. Just put things in there until I finally find one that I like. If you want to put a replacement layer into a menu, you can always go over to this replacement layer button down here in the library panel. Click on that, and each group of templates, like this is the entertainment group as opposed to the general or corporate or something like that. Each group has its own set of replacement layers that have effects associated with them. If you click on it, you get a sense of what those effects look like. So I'll take this first one, the brushed mask. If I drag that to the menu, it adds a replacement layer there with the effect kind of giving you a sense of what it would be like if you added an image to it. So I'm going to add an image to it just to show you what it does. So it replaces what was there and then gives you that little soft border. If I feel like it, I can always make it larger. Things like that. I can always change the size. I don't have to take the size that was the default size. We can always adjust it if we want to. So that's the replacement layer. Let me undo that a couple of times and get rid of that work. And we'll keep that guy there because it's kind of nice to have an image in our menu. So let's move on to another menu. We'll go to the scene selection menu. Let me get rid of this particular link that was put there earlier. I'll just delete that, so we'll start from scratch. I want to be able to put the 4 chapters that we made inside the Ice Arena timeline here. And the normal process would be to open up the Ice Arena down here in the timeline, and here are the 4 chapters we added, chapters 2 through 5. And then you just simply drag a chapter marker, like number 2 here, to one of these buttons, and that creates a link. How easy is that? But in this particular case, we're not going to be linking to these chapter markers here, because if we link to the chapter markers here in this particular menu, when your viewer clicks on this button, it'll then play this timeline starting here, and we'll go past the next chapter marker, and we'll continue to play until you tell it to stop or until it gets to the end, which is not what we wanted to do in this particular case. We wanted to just play just that scene, and that's why we created a chapter playlist. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to go over to the chapter playlists. Here they are. Ice Arena Chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4. As we've done before, I'm going to select all the buttons and then click on the little checkbox that says Set Name from Link. But in this particular case, when you're dragging something like a chapter playlist over, it doesn't quite work the way you'd like it to. I'll drag it over, and this you'd think it would say, let's say the first chapter here, which was Ice Arena. But let's see what it says. Ice Arena. Take the next one over. Ice Arena. Whoops! It's just playing it's just stating the name of the Ice Arena instead of saying the name of the chapter. We went to great pains to name the first chapter opening, but yet it just says Ice Arena, Ice Arena, Ice Arena. It didn't exactly work the way we hoped it would work. If instead I changed it or dragged over the chapter markers instead, it would say the name of the chapter. So it's kind of a little bit of a fly in the ointment. Even though the chapter in the playlist is Coach for chapter number 2 here, the name that it takes on for the button automatically is the name of the playlist, unfortunately. So we got to go back and change those names so that they match what we just put in there. The way you do that, just click on the button, and you could take your text tool or your direct select tool and try to highlight the words down here. But it's much easier simply to just select the button and go to the properties panel here. Instead of typing it in here in the menu, just type it in here in the Properties panel. We want to call that one Opening, like that. And we can do that for the other 4 buttons. So I'm going to do that real quick here, and then do a little dissolve here to save time. All right, I've added the names to these 4 buttons: Opening, Coach, Harness, and Fun and Games. And they all now link to those particular chapter playlists. And what I want to do is also add a link to the main menu. So I need to have this button take us back to the main menu. If I click on that, you can see it's a button. I took the selection tool and clicked on it, and it has a little green border that says it's a button. But if I go over here to the button properties, this link is not set. So I can create a link by just simply dragging the main menu icon from the project panel to that button, or click on this button to make it active and go over here and use the pick whip tool for the link and drag the pick whip tool over to the main menu. So now this button will take people back to the main menu. But one of the reasons we created the chapter playlist is that we want to, when people watch the particular video, this particular segment, we want to bring the people back, your viewers back to this menu when this particular scene is over. So we need to do what are called end actions for those particular playlists. So for playlist number 1, this one here, we need to describe what's called an end action. Right now the end action is not set. We need to tell the DVD what to do when it gets done with playing that particular chapter playlist. So for that chapter playlist number 1, I want the end action to bring people back to this menu, have this button, the second button, be highlighted. And the way you do that is by taking the end action pick whip and drag it down to this button, and that'll say that when this video is done playing, when this first video is done playing, and this button will then be highlighted. I'm going to click on the second Ice Arena playlist, the chapter playlist, have its end action be to the next button in the sequence, there. Because usually you want to help your viewers along. You want to sort of present a logical flow to them, so when they finish this clip, the next clip will be ready for them to click on. That's kind of the purpose. So I select the Ice Arena number 3, which is, if they click this button, when it's done, then I want to bring them back to this menu and have this button highlighted. So I drag that down there. And then what do we do about the 4th one? What do we do about the Ice Arena number 4 when they click this button and it finishes? Where should we then take viewers? Well, we should take viewers to this button over here, because that's probably where they're going to want to go next. They're probably going to want to go back to the main menu. So let's just have the end action for that guy take them to this button. Doesn't make it happen, it just makes that button highlighted, so that on the remote control, if they press the button to take the action button, then it'll actually press this guy down and take them back to the main menu. Okay, I think we've now wrapped up this particular menu. Let's move on to the Skaters menu. The Skaters menu is going to be linking to 6 videos, 4 training videos and 2 routines, plus a button that will let people see all 6 things, or whatever number of things we decided to put in the playlist. So let's just see how that works. We've got 4 video buttons now. We need to duplicate. We want 6 video buttons. So I'm going to click on this one and shift click on the next one, so we have 2 of them selected. And I'm going to duplicate them. So I just go Edit, Duplicate. I can go Control D or Command D to do that as well. That adds 2 more. They get red like that because they're overlapping. You can't have buttons overlap or they won't work. So that's important to have them not overlap. But for the time being, they're overlapping. We'll take care of that in a second. I'm going to drag them off to one side here. What I want to do is I want to select all 6 buttons here and then reduce their size. So I've got these 2 selected. I shift click on the rest. Now they're all selected. So I change the size of one, I'll change the size of all of them. I can change the size. Notice I don't necessarily have to constrain the proportions. Change the size of all of them. If I hold down the Shift key, then that does constrain the size, the proportions. And that pretty much takes care of the size issue. Now I'm going to arrange the buttons a little bit, so I need to click away so not all 6 are selected. And we'll just slide these guys over a bit. I'll take these 4 and slide them over a little bit. Take these 2 here, take these 2 here and slide them up a little bit. There you go. Now I want to take this Return to Main Menu button and get him kind of out of the way. So now I've got 6 buttons that will take people to the 6 different videos. And I want to add one more button that takes people to the Play All, the playlist. I'm going to use this button as my source for that one. So I can right click on that one and say Duplicate, and that adds another one. Put that over the side there. Okay, so we'll put that maybe right there. So now I want to make links to all these buttons using the various timelines. Let me scroll down to the timelines here, open that up, and there they are. My goal is to, I've got 4 training videos here. So I want to go Skater 1 training, 2 training, 3 training, 4 training, and then Skater 1 routine and Skater 2 routine. And then I want to have this button down here be the Play All button, the playlist button. And this button really does take people back to the main menu. So let me just show you how that works. First order of business is to set the buttons up to then I'll take on the name of the link to save us some work down the road. So I'm going to select all of them by marquee selecting them like that. And when I do that, it opens up the button properties here over here in the properties panel. And it says set name from link. So let's click on that for all 6 of those buttons to simplify the process. I'll click away now, so I deselect them. Now I want to do the 4 training videos, 4 training timelines. I'll take Skater Training 1, and boom, notice it says the name of the link right there, Skater Training 2, Skater Training 3. How easy is this? Just making links. It's so simple to make links like this. Skater Training 4. And I want to put the 2 routines here at the end. Skater 1 routine and Skater 2 routine. So the last step here in connecting all the various timelines to these buttons is to connect the timeline to this particular button, which is not going to be the Return to Main Menu button. It's going to be the Play All button. So I select it, and I change the Set Name from Link checkbox to be on. And now I'm going to take the playlist, the Play All playlist, and drag it down there and make a link to it. So now these 6 guys plus this one are all linked to their timelines, or in this case to the playlist. Now this last button, I want to link that to the main menu, so I just take the main menu up here and drag it down to that and create a link to that button. So now these guys are all linked up. The thing is, when a viewer clicks on this particular button and watches that Skater 1 training video play, when it gets to the end of the video, it's going to return the viewers to the main menu. That's because the Skater 1 training timeline, if I click on that, its end action says take the viewer back to the main menu when you get to the end of this timeline. We don't want that to happen. We want to override the end action for all of these timelines. And we do that by telling the button to override it. You have the button say to this particular thing that it's linking to, look, don't do what the end action says to do what I tell you to do instead. So you apply the end action override in the button to tell whatever the button is linked to do a different end action. That's how this whole thing works. And so what I want to do is I want to say this Skater Training 1 thing, I don't want it to go back to the main menu. I want it to bring viewers back to this menu and highlight the next button in the sequence, which is kind of the logical workflow for them. They want to, typically when they finish one video, you bring it back to the menu, and then they would typically want to click on the next one in the sequence. So you're basically helping them along as they view your DVD. So you do this by clicking on this button, making that button active, and then here's this thing called the override. And the override link then says, don't go to the end action, go to this button instead. And then we just continue along in that sequence. Click on the next button and have its end action override go to this next one on the sequence. We're overriding the videos that these guys are linked to. Do the same thing for each button in the sequence. You're telling the viewers to come back to this menu and have the next button in the sequence highlighted. So we're going to go do this for all the 6 buttons across the top here. And we get to the last button. And where do we want to bring people after they watch this last video? Well, the next logical button in the sequence is the Play All button. So we'll just have the override in this particular case go down to the Play All button. And then what happens is when people watch the Play All button and that thing ends, and its the end action for Play All, if I go back to the playlist, there's the playlist, and the end action for Play All is to go back to the main menu, again the same routine as before. So I click on this button, I say no, I don't want to go back to the main menu. I want to give them the option of going back to the main menu, but not take them there directly. I want to keep them in this menu, which is where they would expect to come back to. So I'm going to click on this button and say let's override that end action and bring them back to this menu, but give them the highlight this particular button here to say let's take them back to the main menu if that's what they want to go to. This button's going to be highlighted, but it's not going to actually do it until they click on it. And to see this in action, let's just try it out. I'm going to right click on here to preview this from this menu. Right there. That'll open up the menu. I'm going to, let's say, click on this last one, play this briefly, execute the end action, which should take us back to the menu with the Play All button highlighted, and it is, which is what we wanted to see. And so things are working as expected. We need to do a couple more things to wrap up this process. So the first order of business as we wrap it up is to tell the DVD what it should play first when people put the DVD in their player or when they're watching this on the web using what's called a flash DVD. You do that by obviously selecting something that should play first, and almost always that's going to be the main menu. At least that is in this case. So there's the main menu, and you can tell it's not the first play because there's no little triangle next to it saying that is the first play. So I'm going to right click on it and say set as first play, and now you can see a little triangle there saying, okay, this is now the first play. And you can see that in action by clicking this button up here. Instead of previewing from here by, let's say, right clicking and saying preview from here, when you click this button up here, you preview the entire project as viewers would see it if they put a DVD in their player. So I click that, and it opens up the main menu as you would hope it would do. That's what you want to do. If I click on the scene selection, that'll take me to the scene selection menu. There are various scenes. If I click on return to main menu, we'll go back to the main menu. If I go to skaters, click on the main menu, it'll go back to the main menu. Click on skaters again. If I click on this last little video here, if I click on the end action, after it starts playing, it should take us back to that menu with that button in the lower right hand corner highlighted, and it is, good. So everything seems to be working the way it's supposed to. That's good. I'll exit out of here and return. So now we've taken care of first play. Now we need to check our project. There's this wonderful little tool inside Encore that checks your project to make sure everything really is working. You do want to kind of walk through and check it out, but you go to the build panel and it'll do it for you in much more detail. So under the build panel there's a little button called check project, and you just accept all these defaults here and you click the word start, and it goes through the entire project looking for things that need to be fixed. And the play all says the end action's not set. So I didn't set the end action for play all by mistake. Well, I can open up the project panel here, and I want the end action for play all to take people back to the main menu. So I just take that pick whip and drag it across to the main menu, and that takes care of that little problem. And then what about the production still slideshow? It says it's an orphan timeline. And oh my gosh, I forgot to create a button to take people to the slideshow, which is not a good thing. So that means I need to step out of here for a second and reconsider how I wanted to put this together. And really what I want to do is add a button to the slideshow here in the main menu. So I'm going to click on skaters. I'm going to duplicate that button by right clicking on it and saying duplicate. I'll drag that button off to the right here. I'm going to say set a name from link, which is on already because it was on before for the skaters button. I'm going to get the slideshow. There's the slideshow, and drag it over to that button. And it says all this stuff here. This is a strange thing that happens with slideshows. It doesn't say the name of the slideshow. It says the name of the first slide, unfortunately. So I'll click on that, and we'll change the name here inside the Properties panel. Call it the Production Stills Slide Show. There we go. And so now we've made that link. We need to make sure that that slideshow has an end action, which it does. And so now, we forgot an entire button. We orphaned the timeline. What a horrible thing. But now we've saved that orphan, I think. So let's go back to the build, click on check project, click on start, and no items found. I love when that happens. So that ends this particular project. At this particular point, you could then, under the build, you could then create a flash DVD or a regular DVD or a Blu-ray, and then output it to one of those particular media. But for our purposes, I just wanted to show you how to create the project to this point. As far as exporting it, that's an entirely different thing. It's up to you as to how you want to export it. So that's how the basic authoring process in 3 different tutorials for Adobe Encore.